There seems to be a phenomenon happening, friends. You see, one group of real estate agents is thriving at a level never seen before, and there's another group that is not having the success. Why would you wake up every day and force yourself to do something you don't like? That's not what this industry is supposed to be. By the way, there's an actual place for that. It's called prison. I've met agents all over these United States, heck, Canada, heck, the entire world, that are doing things they love and getting rich while they do it. Hey gang, we are coming to the end of the year, and I'm thinking, I'm reflecting, I'm looking back on all the things I've learned and all the things that I've heard, and I wanted to come to you today. I spent a lot of my time talking to real estate agents all over the planet from every different real estate company, and I spend an awful lot of time reading as many books as I can. And there seems to be a phenomenon happening, friends. You see, one group of real estate agents is thriving at a level never seen before, and there's another group, and unfortunately that group is growing, that is not having the success. Their torches are becoming extinguished, and they're not finding the joy and the romance in the real estate industry that I know exists. So I went on the quest for why. Why is it that some people extremely succeed and others don't? And I'll tell you, a lot of it has to do with how you wake up and how you think about the activities that lead to massive amounts of success. I started my search in a book. And gentlemen, don't get triggered by the title. I promise you it's a great read. It's called Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders and How to Fix It. I figured that was a perfect place for me to begin. And here's what it said. It said, according to Gallup, 75% of people quit their job because of their direct line manager. Think about that. 75% quit because of the person that they report to. Meanwhile, 65% of Americans say they would rather change their boss than get a pay raise. Fascinating to me. And you know why I find that so fascinating? Because, gang, we're all usually in this business our own bosses. So if 65% would rather get a new boss as opposed to getting a pay raise, and 75% quit because they don't like their manager, and you're your own manager, what does that actually say about us? Is it possible that we are doing a terrible job managing ourselves? Forget what it says about leadership and managing groups, because here's what we know. Leadership starts with oneself, moves into another individual, and then ultimately you earn the right to lead a team. Gary Keller said it best in the course he wrote called Keller Leadership Academy. What he said is, you are in charge of your life. No matter how many forces there may be that seem to influence or even dictate part of your life, there's always that part over which you have control. You can increase that control. If you decide you want out of your learning and working and playing, you'll infinitely less powerless and victimized. Do you get that? You got to decide what you want. Because you're clear about what you want, you won't accept cheap substitutes willingly. You won't be vulnerable to being sold a bill of goods by any passing stranger or the media. It is your life, not hers, not his, not theirs, but yours. You see, I believe that there's far too many people who are allowing things like social media to define who they are and how they want to live. So if at the end of the day, we must first master leading ourselves in order to earn the right to ever lead anybody else, how do we actually do that? I found that in a book called $1 Million Habits by an author named Robert Ringer. What he says is you must actually believe in where you're headed. But if belief cannot be willed, how does one acquire it? The same way he or she achieves an understanding of the way the world works, through the attainment of knowledge and wisdom. The greater your knowledge and wisdom, the more confident you are about your beliefs. By knowledge, I'm referring to the acquisition of specific information, and by wisdom, I'm referring to insight or common sense. Think about what he just said, friends. See, if you believe everything he just said, and I do, I believe that we're all born with a divine soul. And inside of that soul is all of the wisdom that you will ever need. The challenge with it is that that wisdom is locked. It's all locked up in there. When we talk about knowledge, we talk about you listening to this podcast, or you reading a book, or you taking a course. That's the quest for specific information on a topic. But when we talk about wisdom, creator-given wisdom, I believe that lives inside of each of us. The challenge is unlocking it. And that's what I believe the entire journey of life is all about. You see, have you ever went and listened to Gary Keller speak? I have. As a matter of fact, I've been listening to him speak now for 27 years, and I have a vivid memory looking up from the audience in my early 20s and feeling something that he was saying from stage. You see, he was speaking not truth, but the illusion of it, because you have to feel truth in order to really understand it. And he was trying to explain a concept, and I got it, friends. I felt it so innately and so deeply inside that no matter what happened next, I couldn't forget it. Most people look up in those moments and say, I had an insight. I listened to Gary, and he is so insightful. And that's actually kind of a misnomer. You see, it's not an insight. An insight would mean a sight from within, insight, an inside sight. I think what Gary said was an outsight. It hit me from the outside and then unlocked a piece of my wisdom. And once a piece of your wisdom is unlocked, you never forget it. You never have to go learn it again. It's just there, and now it's yours. You see, if you're educationally based, and I am, you might think that that's then what enlightenment actually means. That over time, I'm going to go meet people that unlock pieces of my wisdom and pieces of my soul, and in those moments, I become enlightened. And if you can hold those moments for 10 seconds, you're a little bit enlightened, and if you can hold them for a lifetime, you've become Buddha. So the quest for life is in meeting the locksmiths for your soul. Gary Keller is a locksmith for mine. My whole life, he's been saying things that unlocks pieces of my wisdom. Here's a question for you. Who do you have in your life right now that's unlocking your wisdom? And if you look around and you don't see anybody and no one is unlocking any pieces inside of you, run from your current peer group as fast as you can and find someone to listen to. Not that you hear, but that you actually feel. And see, in our industry, it's really clear. The top agents do a handful of things very, very consistently and very, very well. But everyone else seems to be walking around in this daze. And the daze that I hear so often is that they're not making enough money. That's what they tell me. Jason, I'm not making enough money and I want to make more money. So how can you take this grandiose idea of universal enlightenment and turn it into money? Well, here's the reason why. And I found it in a book called The Wealthy Gardener, because many things are indeed more important than money. But overcoming the money problem allows us to focus on these important things. Without money and time, we wield little power over life. He goes on to say that in life, when you face a problem and you have the money to solve it, you face a trivial problem. But in life, when you face a problem and don't have the money to solve it, the smallest of life's problems become the largest of life's problems. And that is spot on. If that's the case, then we're all seeking greater compensation. And so I went on a hunt for a definition of compensation that actually made sense to me. And I found it later in the book, and here's what he says. He says, compensation is something we get for something we give. It's repayment for a contribution that is needed and useful. Did you hear that? It's repayment for a contribution that is needed and useful. Gang, think about that for a minute. That means you have to give before you take. That's why it's called give and take. It's not called take and give. It's repayment. And we must never forget that our income reflects, number one, the need for our service. Number two, how well we perform it. Number three, the difficulty in replacing us. And number four, how many people we get to serve. Think about those things. Let's do it again. Number one, the need for our service. Friends, you are so vital. Your service is so needed. You should feel so damn proud to be a real estate agent. You help people navigate what is often the most complex and impactful financial decision of their lives. And let's just talk about it for a moment. The decision on where to live may be the single biggest decision someone can make. Gary Keller says it best: where you live determines often the food that you eat, the recreation that you partake in, the peer group that you have around you, the quality of your life, and the quality of the relationships can be tied to the decisions on where you're living. So don't tell me for a second that real estate agents aren't needed. You are vital. Then number 2, how well we perform it. How well we perform it is a choice. The question every day is, what are you doing to improve your competency in this industry? And here's what we know. Competency is not rewarded, it's expected. It's expected. So how good at doing the job are you? Then the difficulty in replacing us. Gang, that's it right there. That's why when people say that an NFL quarterback so-and-so is overpaid, good luck proving that anywhere. Talk about the difficulty in replacing them. There's only 32 of them at any given time that can be a starting quarterback in this league. Same with NBA players. How many people on the globe have access to a round ball? You're talking, 7 to 8 billion? Now, there's 213 that earn the right to play in the NBA. That's difficult to replace them. And then finally, how many people we get to serve. Gang, it's that last one that separates the amount of money you make in this industry wholeheartedly. The amount of people you get to serve. Said differently, lead generation. That is the argument for lead generation. And the reason why is found in a book called Essentialism, because ultimately what Greg says is the result is that by investing in fewer things, we have the satisfying experience of making significant progress in the things that matter most. But this requires us to grapple with real-time trade-offs and making tough decisions. At the end of the day, you can struggle being busy, but busyness doesn't lead to business in the real estate industry. It begins with lead generation to earn the right to master the client experience. The way of the essentialist means living by design, not by default. Instead of making choices reactively, the essentialist deliberately distinguishes the vital few from the trivial many. It eliminates the non-essentials and then removes obstacles so that the essential things have clear, smooth passage. That's what essentialism is, and that's what I'm asking you to do when it comes to lead generation. That's the entire ballgame. It's either that I wake up in the morning and I've built a productivity-specific environment to generate more leads, more people that I get to help navigate the challenges and opportunities of real estate, or I didn't. And the more days you wake up and didn't, the less money you're going to make. You see, here's the reality. When market shifts, and they always are shifting, there are fewer total transactions. Buyers and sellers respond differently, and leads, they simply don't pour in like they used to. That's what's different, gang, about this market than 4 years ago. Look, you went from 6+ million transactions to give or take 4 million transactions, and it felt like it happened overnight. What did you expect? And the top agents in the country say, I expected it to be harder, so I knew I was going to have to do more lead generation. But there's this vast majority of people, real estate agents, that seem to be left behind on that concept. If you're not actively generating leads, you're going to see a slowdown in your business. Lead generation truly is your business. Without leads, you have no sales, you have no closings, you have no income. The truth is, there's no other activity you can do each day that will do more to improve your work life than generating more leads. But now we got a problem. We got a problem. Because when I go into large rooms and I say, raise your hand if you lead generate, X number of hands go up. But then when I ask the next question, raise your hand if you love lead generating. Gang, there's 1 or 2 people in every room that raise their hand, and that's the problem. You see, there's a fundamental misunderstanding that's happening in the industry right now around what lead generation is and what it can be. By and large, I see 2 types of real estate agents. One group that wakes up every day and asks the focusing question, how do I force myself to do an activity I don't like that I call lead gen? And another group that says, how do I wake up every day and do things that I love and call that lead gen? And it's no surprise to me that that second bucket is the one that's thriving and loving their lives. Why would you wake up every day and force yourself to do something you don't like? That's not what this industry is supposed to be. By the way, there's an actual place for that. It's called prison. They'll have you do shit you don't like all day long. I don't have the skill set to thrive there. I'm hoping I don't go. But how can you own a business where you're the CEO, you're the founder, and you've decided to create a business model that you don't enjoy working in? How does that happen? How does that happen? I don't understand that. And so I go to the only place that I know, which is an idea that it's possible, you just don't know what's possible. Could that be? Could you wake up every day and actually believe you have to do things that you don't enjoy in order to succeed? It's possible that that's your challenge. I've met agents all over these United States, heck, Canada, heck, the entire world that are doing things they love and getting rich while they do it. I met a real estate agent who was struggling. They had been challenged their whole life with their weight. I'll never forget the conversation. I was talking to this person and she said, I've always had a problem with my weight. And I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, well, I have too much of it. Fair, I said, no problem, get it. What'd you do about that? And she said, well, I hired a MAPS coach. That's the coaching program at Keller Williams. And it happened to be a KW agent. She said, I hired a MAPS coach and that person challenged me to get outside of my comfort zone. And I said, well, what'd you do? And she said, well, I decided I would send a postcard to every single home in my community. And what the postcard said was, I'm trying to lose weight. Now, she had me right there. Gang, do you even contemplate and realize the amount of strength that it takes to even send a postcard like that? I can't wrap my head around how brave she is. And it says, I'm trying to lose weight. In order to do so, I'm going to be walking each morning from 6:30 to 7:30, starting here. And on the postcard was a map of her neighborhood, and she had the little park in the middle with a star on it. And she said, I'd love for you to walk with me. I'll be doing it Monday through Saturday. I hope to see you then. Gang, she sends that out on a monthly basis. So what happens? Well, immediately, her husband comes running in and says, this is the worst idea ever. You literally just sent out a postcard asking to be assaulted and telling everyone exactly where to meet you and at what time. And then she said, well, I guess you'll have to walk with me then to keep me safe. Gang, she was scheming at a level that he never could have even fathomed. Now, all of a sudden, she had a partner. You do realize that today she gets between 15 and 20 people, mostly women, that show up to walk with her every single day. And on Saturdays, she'll sometimes get 30 to 40 people because they bring their spouses and their kids. But here's what's interesting. 2 years later, she does over 60% of all the listing sales in that neighborhood. And why is that? Because she became the change agent for all of the people that lived in that community that also wanted to be walking. She figured out that if you can become the change agent in somebody's life, you don't have to look for a lead again. Friends, her lead generation is done by 7:30, and it's about taking walks with people. She's walking for life. When I asked her, well, what'd you learn from this experience? She said, Jason, my whole life, I wasn't strong enough to walk for me. But it turns out I'm strong enough to walk for everybody else. I'm in awe of that. I'm in absolute awe of that. But that wasn't the only story that I heard. I met another woman, and candidly, this one was a little strange. When I showed up on the Zoom call to interview her, she was wearing a sports bra, and that was kind of it. And I started the interview by saying, you're not wearing a shirt. And she said, well, what do you mean? I dress like this all the time. And I said, yeah, sans shirt. Feels off to me. And she kind of laughed and she stood up and she was wearing these skin tight workout pants. And she literally turned around and written across her behind, it said, ask me about real estate. Gang, in that moment, I went into complete judgment. I'm a big boy. I can admit it. I started thinking about how that was objectifying and all of the reasons that felt strange to me. And then she sat down. I tried to stay in curiosity though. And I said, okay, you got me. Tell me more about that. Now, I had already made the decision that the type of people who would have asked her about real estate would not be the type of clients that she might want, that she's the talk of the town, and all of these different things. And you know what she told me? She said, Jason, I used to be a personal trainer. My passion is the body. All I want to do is working out. The only place that I'm actually happy is the gym. But I couldn't make enough money doing it. You see, when you're a personal trainer, you're trading your time for dollars and you can only charge so much per hour. And so I got into the real estate business. I realized quickly that lead generation was not my bag and I didn't want to make TCPA compliant phone calls. And so I decided to do what I love. Friends, she works out at 4 different gyms within her community. 5 days a week, she does 2-a-days. That means in the morning and in the afternoon, rotating around to her 4 gyms. And what does she do while she's there? Friends, she works out. She helps people that are new to the gym that maybe be overwhelmed, and she talks real estate. She does 60 transactions a year running that model. That's her model, and that's the uniform that she wears every day to go do it. I sat back in my seat and all of my judgment went away. In that moment, the only person that I was judging was myself for having rushed to conclusions about her. You've never met anybody so happy. She was grinning ear to ear as she was telling me about her life. She wakes up every day and she understands that by doing what she loves, the business comes to her. I think that's brilliant. I heard Sheena Sadam's story, and you've all heard it here. She looked up and saw a problem in the world because that's what Sheena does. She sees the problems and then insists on being part of the solution. She thought loneliness was an epidemic, and I'm here to tell you that I absolutely agree with her. Some of us that are the most visible are actually the most lonely. She understood that, so she started speed friending. Friends, she invites on the last Friday of every month a group of humans to get together at some cool restaurant to make friends. If you haven't seen it, her Facebook ad, quote unquote, is incredibly simplistic. She says, hi, my name is Sheena. When I moved to Washington, D.C., I didn't know anybody. And now I have a thriving community. If you're here and you don't have enough friends, or even if you're new, we'd love to have you out to speed friending. Come out, it's a couple of hours, we're gonna eat some great food, and every 5 minutes you're gonna meet a new friend. And here's the catch. If you don't have anybody to sit next to, don't worry. You can sit next to me. Then she simply has these events. Friends, this is the top line funnel into Sheena's women's group that has over 10,000 people in it. She'll get 20 to 25, 30 people at any of these speed friending events, and she's connecting humans. By the way, Sheena's going to sell over 700 homes this year, doing what she loves, solving problems, solving the world's problems, and inviting everybody else to watch as she does it. I met another agent. And all this person wants to do is have people over to his home. If you gave this guy a choice between having a house party and doing anything else, he'd want to have a house party. Friends, that sounds like the 7th circle of hell to me. I don't like anyone in my house, but that's what this gentleman wants to be doing. And he does it in his front yards. See, that's the thing that makes it incredible, and I never would have thought of that. What Jim does is he invites people over once a quarter, puts out big signs, and has a front yard party. And I want you to close your eyes, not if you're driving, and imagine on one side of the yard is a kid's paradise. They got bounce houses and face painters and a creepy clown, and it is awesome. Professional babysitters are there making sure the kids are losing their mind and having a blast. And on the other side, that's where the adults are hanging out. And it's round white linen tablecloths, and they're being catered to. And on a Saturday from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, they can bring their kids and be catered to while they watch their kids have a blast. And he has connected this community, and he carries over 70% of the listings that happen in that neighborhood for no other reason other than he has become one of the best parts of their quarter. See, if you were to say to Jim, are you working today or are you having a house party today? He'd say, what's the difference? That's what makes him a genius. I met another real estate agent who does house parties, but for small groups, lavish dinner parties. That's what Renee is into. She invites people over, 8 to 12 people, and there's going to be a theme, and there's going to be incredible wine, and there's going to be a chef, and it's going to literally be the talk of the town. And once a week, she's going to have the most powerful 8 to 12 people over. And if you get a ticket, an invite to her house party, you feel like you've just won Willy Wonka's golden ticket. And that's enough. Because those are the people that she feeds their souls that night. And then they in turn feed their business to her. I met a young man who loves board games. I don't. I'm an adult. But he loves board games. You know what he does, gang? Thursday nights from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock in his town, he found a bar that lets him set up 5 high-top tables. And I don't know what games he has, but I'm imagining Parcheesi over here. Is that still a thing? You got Trouble over here. You got cards over here. You got Monopoly over here. And you know what? People stop in after work for a pint and to play a board game. And yeah, I can't imagine doing that. But you know what he proved? That no matter what you're into, there's another group of people into the exact same thing. You know what all these people have in common? All of them wake up in the morning and ask a different question. They ask the question, what do I love to do? And they know full well that by asking it, there's another group of people that also love the same thing. And isn't that the basis of relationship? Shared experience, shared time, shared enjoyment. And they do that thing. From what I can tell, the rules are relatively simple. Number one, you got to decide what it is that you love doing. So if you want to play along, everyone just write down, what are the hobbies that you absolutely love that you may have left behind? Because here's the story. Pulling the hobbies from the past into the future, but doing them in a new way might be exactly what sets you free. There's nothing that you want to be doing that there's not another group of people that will do with you. So what's the hobby? Number two, you got to commit to doing it. This has to be done on a weekly basis, a quarterly basis, and an annual basis. It's not going to work unless you're doing it a lot. Number three, it's got to be something you can do with others, and you're either inviting strangers or you're inviting people from your database. There's a group of you out there that love golfing. I think it's a stupid game, but I understand that you enjoy it, and you love golfing, and you put on white pants and an orange belt and an orange hat, and you look really good. You look great. We all think so. But you know what? If you love that, you should be golfing 2 days a week with 3 strangers each time and adding 6 different people into your database on a weekly basis. Friends, that's 360 plus over the course of the year, all connected by the game that you love to play. Would you call it lead generation if you had to golf twice a week if you love golf? No, you'd look up and call it work-life balance. But I'm going to tell you this, it would pay huge dividends at work. It's the basis of every database. Number 4, you have to make the event easier for all the other people that are attending. And I think this one's key. You see, our walker made it easy for everybody because she told them exactly where to meet and at what time to do it. Our gym rat, she makes it easier for everybody because she walks around the gym helping people with no expectation of anything, but it leads to business. Jim makes it easier because he does everything. All you have to do is show up and have a good time at the house party. So how are you going to make it easier for everybody else? You can think of a million ways to do it. Just go grab a couple of them and make the operational choice to make it easy. And then finally, if you're going to do it, you actually have to be there in presence. So leave your phone someplace else. When you're going to golf, go golf. Enjoy it. You know that old saying, dance like nobody is watching? You know why that's a saying? Because as soon as you look that joyful, other people can't help but being joyful also. I think about 2026, and I have 2 visions in my head. One of a group of people who wake up every day doing the things that they want, changing the planet, solving the problems, and connecting with people, not counting the number of people they've contacted, but counting the depth of the connections they're making. And group number 2, the kind that wakes up and doesn't have any idea how beautiful this thing of ours is. This thing of ours, friends, this real estate industry, there's no place else like it. At this point, I've talked to engineers from tech companies, CEOs on Wall Street, captains of industry from coast to coast. And I can tell you what you have here is so unique. It's so special. Because the people that are in it, they didn't grow up thinking this was going to be the thing. There's very few, I think, that at 12 years old say, I'm either going to be a fireman or an NFL football player or a real estate agent. Somehow we all end up here. Most will tell you that it was a fluke. They failed into it. I can't tell you how many people on this show have said, well, I had a real estate agent. I wasn't impressed, so I became one. However we got here, we did. And for some reason, this group of incredible entrepreneurs gets here, and a large number of them lose the entrepreneurial spirit the minute that they do. They walk in and they say, okay, I guess I have to go do stuff I don't like. That's insane. This thing of ours, it's about maximizing your potential. You know, on the front of the MREA book, Gary says it's not about the money. And it's tough because, of course, we're talking about money all the time. And that becomes the scoreboard. But it's really not. The money is the byproduct. Fulfillment comes from the journey that we're all on. If you wake up in the morning and you don't like the things that you're going to do, I promise you there's going to be days when you wish you didn't wake up. And that might be the greatest tragedy of all. This thing of ours is special. It's as much a calling as any other. We wake up in the morning and with no expectation, we help as many people as we can. And a small portion of the people we help turn into clients. And an even smaller portion of that turn into clients that we actually accept compensation from. That's the misunderstanding that's been circling our industry forever. The number of people that you'll help with no expectation of getting paid far is in excess of those that you help with. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. In looking for the final answers, I found a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And if you don't know Michael Singer, he's a wonder. I've had the opportunity to sit and spend time with him, and what he says in the book is that the exploration of self is inextricably interwoven with the unfolding of one's own life. The natural ups and downs of life can either generate personal growth or create personal fears. Which of these dominates is completely dependent on how we view the change. Change can be viewed as either exciting or frightening. But regardless of how we view it, we must all face the fact that change is the very nature of life. If you have a lot of fear, you won't like change. You'll try to create a world around you that's predictable, controllable, and definable. You'll try to create a world that doesn't stimulate your fears. Fear doesn't want to feel itself. It's actually afraid of itself. So you utilize the mind in an attempt to manipulate life for the purpose of not feeling fear. Gang, that's a design for failure, and not failing in the good way. The life that I'm talking about can be scary to think of. Imagine waking up in the morning and committing to do the things you love in a way that generates real estate leads at the same time. I can understand how that would scare some people, but you know what you're actually afraid of? You're actually only afraid because you can't guarantee the outcome. And because you can't guarantee the outcome, you're worried about using the time and not getting the end result that you want. But here's the thing about life. Life presents opportunities. Very rarely does it produce outcomes. The outcomes are created by your actions. That's when opportunity becomes outcome. Once you take action. You know, sometimes action is only precursored by inspiration. So do you find this inspiring? Are you actually feeling it and not just hearing it? If you're feeling it, then you might be left with some sense of dread, which is, Jason, I know the hobby that I want to do, but I have no idea how to actually go turn that into a lead generation model. I understand your 4 words, but do you have any examples? Yes, and yes. The MREA Playbook Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3 are filled with one-pagers with people who are living their dreams one day at a time through lead generation. Heck, the emails that you get every Thursday from people you hear on this show, your show, the People's Podcast, they're full of the models that they're running. Don't overcomplicate it. Remember, it's committing to what I love doing. It's then inviting others to do it with me. It's then making it easier for all of them. And then finally and ultimately, you're always building a database of the people that you're interacting with. That is the fundamental basis for all database-driven businesses. And let's never forget, that's what we're building here. We're building database-driven businesses, which are different than many other types of businesses. They're based on simple ideas, which is I wake up in the morning and I connect with the people that are already in the database. Then I grow it in a systematic way, and those two things never stop. That's the constant in my business life. You know, this is the last broadcast of the MREA podcast 2025. Because of you, you have made this show number one in the real estate space, and now you are actively climbing the charts in all of small business. It's the People's Podcast, and every time I do a show, I thank my lucky stars for the opportunity to be the host. Not for what it's done for my life, but for what it's done to everybody else's life that we've been interviewing, to everybody that's been listening, but most importantly, to all of the clients that we're all getting that we may not have gotten otherwise. This isn't a show that expounds ideas that might work. It's the only show in real estate that talks about the ideas that are proven to work. This is a show about models. You are the greatest audience in the history of the real estate multiverse. I am your host, and I am grateful. Thank you for everything that you've done, and most importantly, thank you for everything you will do in 2026. MREA 2025 signing off. God bless, and enjoy the holidays.